How did my daughter's fiancé learn that deciding who is important can collapse an entire wedding? They told me I didn't belong on the guest list. I said nothing, made a few quiet calls, and watched 13 venues disappear in less than 48 hours. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. The phone rang while I was washing dishes. Tuesday evening, 7:30, the kind of hour when people call because they think you're done with dinner but haven't started winding down yet. I dried my hands on a towel that Nola gave me 3 Christmases ago, the one with the faded cartoon coffee cups, and answered. "Tainer, hey." Holden's voice carried that smooth confidence he'd perfected somewhere between his MBA and his first promotion. "Got a minute?" "Sure." I leaned against the counter, watching water pool around a fork I'd missed. "So, Linda and I have been working through the final guest list. You know how it is. Venue capacity, budget considerations, that whole thing." He paused like he expected me to agree. I didn't. "Anyway, we've decided to keep it really small. Just the most important people. Close family, obviously. Key colleagues. You understand." I understood the words. I didn't understand why he was telling me this until he continued. "We think it's best if we keep it to people who are, really central to our lives right now. Active participants. The wedding's about celebrating our future, and we want everyone there to be part of that forward momentum." The fork reflected overhead light in a small, sharp line. "Tainer, you there?" "I'm here." "Great. So we'll obviously do something afterward. Maybe brunch the next weekend, something casual where everyone can meet. But for the ceremony itself, we're being pretty selective." I set the fork down carefully on the counter. "You're saying I'm not invited to my daughter's wedding?" "It's not personal." His tone shifted, became explanatory, like he was presenting quarterly earnings to someone who didn't quite grasp the spreadsheet. "It's about creating the right energy, the right presence. We want people who are really engaged with where we're going as a couple." "Does Nola know you're calling me?" Brief hesitation. "We discussed the list together." "That's not what I asked." "She knows the thinking behind it. Look, Tainer, this isn't some kind of statement about your relationship with her. It's just logistics. You've been pretty hands-off with the planning anyway, and honestly, that told us you weren't that invested in the event itself." I thought about the $12,000 I'd quietly transferred when they put down the venue deposit, the caterer connection I'd mentioned to Linda through a carefully worded email, the florist who'd given them a 30% discount after I'd written 3 favorable reviews of her sister's restaurant over 5 years. "I see," I said. "I knew you'd get it. You're a reasonable guy. This keeps everything streamlined, keeps the focus where it should be." "Sure." "All right, good talk. We'll figure out that brunch thing soon." The call ended. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone, looking at the faded cartoon coffee cups on the towel, and realized my daughter's fiancé had just explained that I wasn't important enough to watch her get married. The apartment felt very quiet. I finished the dishes, put everything away, wiped down the counter twice, then I walked. The city at night has a rhythm you only notice when you're moving through it without destination. Couple arguing outside a Thai place on 8th. Delivery guy shouting into his phone in Mandarin. Smoke from a halal cart mixing with the smell of rain that hadn't fallen yet. I walked for 40 minutes before I realized I was heading toward the restaurant district, the blocks where I'd spent 26 years building a reputation Holden didn't think mattered. My phone buzzed. Text from Marco, the event coordinator at the Bellwether, one of the mid-range places I'd reviewed favorably 8 years ago. "Heard about the wedding. That doesn't sit right. Call if you need anything." I stopped walking. Reread the message 3 times. Marco had worked at 6 different venues. He knew everyone. He'd sent this 20 minutes after Holden's call, which meant someone had already started talking. Another text came through while I stared at the first. This one from Elias, who'd owned the same bistro for 33 years and still saved me a corner table when I showed up unannounced. "Your daughter's marrying in Fool. Respectfully." I put the phone in my pocket and kept walking, but something had shifted. The hurt was still there, sharp and specific, but underneath it was something else. Clarity, maybe. Or just the recognition that Holden had made a calculation based on incomplete information. He thought silence meant absence. Thought invisibility meant powerlessness. He'd never asked what I actually did for 26 years. Never wondered why restaurant owners remembered my name. Never noticed that when I walked into certain places, staff stood a little straighter and managers appeared from back offices to shake my hand. He saw a quiet man who wrote about food. He didn't see the network that existed behind every review, every recommendation, every carefully placed word that could fill a dining room or leave it empty. I got home near 11, Made tea I didn't drink, sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, and opened my contacts list. 547 names, venue owners, suppliers, coordinators, managers, people who'd built their reputations alongside mine, who trusted my judgment because I'd proven it mattered. I scrolled slowly, reading names I hadn't thought about in months, some in years. Then I stopped on one, Elias Mercer, the bistro owner, the one who'd texted. I stared at his name for a long time, then I closed the laptop without calling anyone and went to bed. But I didn't sleep much. Morning came cold and gray, the kind of October weather that makes the whole city smell like wet concrete. I made coffee and stood at my kitchen window watching people hurry toward the subway, everyone moving with purpose. Nola used to stand at this window when she was 7, 8, 9 years old, before the separation. She'd press her nose against the glass and narrate the lives of strangers. "That lady's going to buy 17 puppies," she'd say, pointing at a woman in a business suit. "That man's a secret scientist who invented invisible pizza." I'd play along, ask questions, build the stories with her while reviewing my notes for that evening's restaurant. She never seemed to mind that I was half-focused. She just wanted me there. When did that stop being enough? The separation came when she was 11. Her mother got the apartment in Brooklyn with the better school district. I got every other weekend and Wednesday dinners, a schedule that sounded reasonable in mediation and felt like slow suffocation in practice. I still worked, still traveled. Newark, Boston, Philadelphia. Anywhere within a 4-hour radius that had a dining scene worth covering. The money was decent, enough to cover child support and rent and the occasional emergency. When Nola turned 16 and needed a car, I covered it. When she started college and the financial aid fell short, I made up the difference. I just did it quietly. Her mother remarried when Nola was 14, some financial consultant named Patrick who wore expensive watches and talked about wealth generation. Nice enough guy. Boring, but nice. He had a house in Westchester with a pool. He existed loudly, with visible proof of success. I existed in margins, in transferred funds, in problems solved before Nola knew they were problems. Maybe that was the mistake. I headed to a lunch meeting at Marchand's, a French place in the village that had survived 4 recessions. The current owner, Blair Liang, had been there 9 years. We'd built a good relationship. I'd reviewed him honestly twice, and both times he'd taken the feedback seriously. The dining room was half full. Blair appeared within 30 seconds of my sitting down. "Tainer, good to see you." "Blair." He gestured to someone I couldn't see, and a waiter appeared with water and bread. No menu. They knew I'd order something off-book, something Blair would prepare specifically for me, because that's how these relationships worked. "Heard some news about your daughter," Blair said, keeping his voice low. "Congratulations." "Thank you." "Big wedding?" "Supposed to be?" Something in my tone made him pause. "Everything all right?" "It's fine." He nodded slowly, not believing me, but not pushing. "Let me know if you need anything. I mean that." The meal was excellent. Duck with cherries and a reduction I couldn't quite identify. I made notes more from habit than necessity. My phone buzzed. Text from Linda, the wedding planner. "Hi, Tainer. Quick question. Do you have the contact info for that florist you mentioned, the one who did the arrangements at the Bellwether last year?" I stared at the message. Linda knew I wasn't invited. She'd been in the room when Holden made that decision, and now she was asking me for vendor connections. I forwarded her the florist's information without commentary. She responded immediately. "You're the best, thank you," Blair returned as I was paying. "Everything good?" "Perfect, as always." Good. He hesitated. "Listen, I don't know if this matters, but I was talking to Vincent last week. You know Vincent, runs the terrace uptown?" "I know him." He mentioned they're hosting a wedding in March. Big event. He seemed excited about it, but also mentioned the couple being very image-conscious. Made a point of it. Said the groom works in finance, wants everything to look a certain way. The duck suddenly felt heavy in my stomach. Did he mention names? Ravel or something like that. Vincent wasn't complaining exactly, but you could tell he found them exhausting. Holden Ravel. The Terrace. March. "Thanks for letting me know." Blair nodded. "Like I said, need anything, you call." I walked out thinking about what just happened. Blair had gone out of his way to tell me about a conversation with another venue owner, about my daughter's fiancé, about the wedding I wasn't invited to, the industry talks. Always has. Holden thought he was planning a private event. He didn't understand he was performing for an audience that had already formed opinions. I spent the rest of the day working on a review of a Thai place in Queens. Good food, inconsistent service, owner who cared more than her staff did. That evening, Nola called. "Hey, Dad. Hey, sweetheart. Just wanted to check in. We haven't talked much lately." "I know. How's the planning going?" It's a lot. Holden has very specific ideas about everything." I waited, giving her space. Linda's been great, though, super organized, and Holden's really good at making decisions, which helps. "That's good." Silence. The kind that meant she wanted to say something else but didn't know how. "Dad? Yeah? Are you okay with everything?" I thought about lying, but we'd never done that. "I'm okay," I said. "I want you to be happy." "I am happy." She said it too quickly. "Holden's amazing. He's got everything figured out. Good job, good future." "Those are good things." "Yeah." More silence. "I should go," she said finally. "Dinner reservation." "All right. Love you." "Love you too, Dad." The call ended, and I sat holding the phone, thinking about what she didn't say, about the careful way she described Holden's certainty. My phone buzzed. Marco again. "The terrace thing isn't sitting well with a few people, just FYI. I typed back, "What do you mean?" "Vincent's already regretting taking the booking. Couple's demanding, but not pleasant. Asked if you'd reviewed the venue recently. Told him you had. He remembers. Says if you're not at the wedding, it says something." "Says what?" "That the groom doesn't understand respect." I set the phone down. Marco was telling me that people were noticing, that Holden's decision was being discussed in the same industry circles he was trying to impress. I opened my laptop, looked at my contacts again. This time, I composed an email. To Elias Mercer. Subject: coffee sometime? Simple, casual, no agenda. His response came 5 minutes later. "Tomorrow morning, my place, 9 o'clock. I closed the laptop and finally drank the tea I'd made. It had gone cold, but I finished it anyway, thinking about how silence could be mistaken for weakness, and how sometimes people only understand respect when they watch it disappear. Elias's bistro opened at 11 for lunch, but he was always there by 7. I arrived at 9 and found him in the dining room, sitting at a corner booth with the newspaper spread out. "Tainer." He stood, shook my hand. His grip was still firm. "Coffee? Please?" He brought 2 mugs and slid into the booth across from me. For a minute, we just sat there drinking terrible coffee in comfortable silence. "So," he said finally, "your daughter's marrying someone who doesn't know how things work." "Apparently." "And he decided you're not important enough to attend." "That's the summary, yeah." Elias made a sound between a laugh and a sigh. "How old is he?" 28. "Finance?" "Yeah. Of course. They all think the same way. Everything's a transaction. Everything's about visible assets. They can't conceive of power that doesn't come with a title." He drank more coffee. "But he's getting married in a restaurant." The simplicity of that statement hung between us. 13 venues, Elias continued. "Linda's got 13 venues on the list. I know because Marco told me. You know all 13 owners. Personally." I didn't confirm or deny. The Terrace, Willowbrook Estate, the Foundry, Chapel House, Meridian Hall. He ticked them off from memory. "You've reviewed every single one, most of them favorably, they remember. It was just my job. Your job was telling the truth. That's rarer than people think." He leaned back. "Vincent told me yesterday he's already having second thoughts. Said the groom keeps asking about prestige and social positioning like he's buying a stock instead of celebrating a marriage." "Vincent say anything else?" "Said it's strange you're not on the guest list. Said when a father doesn't attend his daughter's wedding, it usually means something went very wrong, and he's not interested in hosting an event with that kind of background tension." The coffee was making my hands shake slightly, or maybe that wasn't the coffee. "I'm not here to cause problems," I said. "I know that. Everyone knows that." Elias finished his mug. "But here's the thing. You don't have to cause problems. The problems are already there. Holden created them when he confused your quietness for irrelevance. It's their wedding, their choice. Is it Nola's choice, or is it his?" I didn't answer. "Right." Elias stood, stretched, then walked behind the bar and started wiping down surfaces. "If certain venues became unavailable," he said, not looking at me, "it wouldn't be because anyone conspired. It would be because business owners make decisions based on fit, based on whether they want to associate their venue with certain people." "Elias!" "I'm just speaking in theory. The way older men do when they're passing the time." He glanced up. "And purely in theory, if someone wanted to make discreet inquiries about availability, that would be standard business practice. Not retaliation, just proper due diligence." I sat very still. Hypothetically, Elias continued, a person might call Vincent, might mention some concerns, might ask whether Vincent had really thought through the optics of hosting an event where the bride's father was deliberately excluded. And Vincent might reconsider. Vincent might do a lot of things. He's got a business to protect. Elias looked at me directly. I'm not saying you should do this. I'm saying it's already happening. People are already talking. Give it another week and half, those venues will be asking Linda very pointed questions. I stood up slowly. I appreciate the coffee. Anytime. He walked me to the door. Tanner, one more thing. Yeah? If you do make those calls, keep your tone neutral. Keep it about concerns, not accusations. Make it about their comfort level, not your hurt feelings. Let them arrive at their own conclusions. I haven't decided to make any calls. Of course not. He smiled slightly. But if you did, that's how you'd do it. I left the bistro and walked 3 blocks before I realized I had nowhere specific to go. It was 10:15 on a Wednesday morning. I ended up in a parking lot near the river, engine off, watching joggers pass. My phone was in my hand before I consciously decided to pick it up. I scrolled to Vincent's number, stared at it. My phone buzzed. Linda. Hi, Tanner. Quick scheduling question. Are you available for a call later this week? Want to go over some logistics? I stared at the message. Linda knew I wasn't invited, and now she wanted to discuss logistics. I called her directly. She answered on the second ring. Linda. Tanner. Thanks for calling back. Listen, I wanted to touch base. Some questions have come up regarding guest arrangements. Linda, I'm not on the guest list. Why are you calling me about arrangements? Pause. Longer than it should have been. Right. So, that's actually part of what I wanted to discuss. There's been some feedback from a few vendors. Nothing major, just questions about family dynamics and how that might affect the event atmosphere. What kind of questions? Standard due diligence stuff, making sure everyone's comfortable. The terrace reached out yesterday asking about your involvement. What did you tell them? I said you were supportive but wouldn't be attending due to size constraints. And they believed that? Another pause. They asked follow-up questions. I leaned back against the headrest. It was already happening. The industry was asking questions, and Linda was scrambling. What do you need from me? I asked. I need to understand what the actual situation is, because if there's family conflict that's going to impact vendor relationships, I need to manage that. This is my reputation, too. There's no conflict. Holden made a decision. That's his right. Tanner. Her voice dropped. I've been doing this for 11 years. I know when something doesn't add up. A father not attending his daughter's wedding doesn't add up. And when Vincent calls me sounding concerned, that affects my ability to do my job. What do you want me to do, Linda? I don't know. But I need you to understand that this is creating complications. And if more venues start expressing reservations, we have a serious problem. She ended the call. I sat in my car for another 20 minutes, watching the river move. I hadn't made any calls yet, hadn't sabotaged anything, but the mere fact of my exclusion was already causing ripples, because people who knew me couldn't reconcile supportive father with deliberately uninvited. Holden had created a story that didn't make sense, and stories that don't make sense create suspicion. My phone was still in my hand. I scrolled back to Vincent's number, and this time I pressed call. Vincent answered on the third ring, distracted. Kitchen noise filled the background, orders being called, metal clanging. Tanner, hold on. The noise faded as he moved somewhere quieter. Sorry, lunch prep. What's up? Got a minute? For you, always. What do you need? I hadn't planned my words. Elias's advice echoed. Keep it neutral, state concerns, let him draw his own conclusions. That required more restraint than I felt capable of. I heard you're hosting a wedding in March. Congratulations. Oh, yeah. His tone shifted. Revel wedding. Big event. Good money. That's great. Silence. He was waiting for the real reason. Vincent, I want to be direct. That's my daughter's wedding. I know, he said simply. Linda mentioned your name when we first discussed it. And? I've been wondering why you're not on the guest list. Not a question, an opening. Holden wanted to keep things small. Only people involved in their current lives. That's what Linda said. I didn't buy it either. Vincent sighed. I'm not prying, but this makes me uncomfortable. Why? I've known you 8 years. You're not the kind of father who gets cut out unless something serious happened. And if something serious did happen, then I'm hosting a wedding built on a family fracture. That's not the energy I want in my venue. Nothing serious happened. Holden just doesn't think I'm important enough. A long pause. He said that? Not directly, but that's the message. Vincent exhaled. Okay, that changes things. How? I've met Holden a few times. He talks a lot about prestige, standards, the right kind of people. If his standard excludes you, a fair, respected man, then his standard is trash. The bluntness caught me off guard. I don't host events for people who treat good people badly, Vincent continued. That's policy. I've turned down weddings before when something felt off, and this feels off. I'm not calling to pressure you. I know. If you were, I'd shut this down. You're giving me information I should have had from the start. He paused. I need to think about whether I want my venue tied to this event. That's fair. I'll be in touch. The call ended. I sat in my car staring at the phone, caught between relief and unease. Vincent reacted exactly as Elias predicted. Not outrage on my behalf, but concern for his own reputation. I wasn't sabotaging anything. I was providing information. At least, that's what I told myself. Over the next 3 hours, I made 6 more calls. Each followed the same pattern, with different tones. Meredith at Willowbrook Estate remembered hosting my 40th, and Nola as a teenager. After I explained, she went quiet. We pride ourselves on celebrating family, she said, and this doesn't feel like celebration. Ember at the Foundry was efficient. Thanks for the heads up. We'll review the booking and respond within 48 hours. Indigo at Chapel House reacted emotionally. That's heartbreaking. I don't think we can host something like that. It would feel wrong. Raymond at Meridian Hall was skeptical at first, clearly wary of manipulation. When I offered to let him confirm everything with Linda directly, his tone shifted. If this is accurate, we have concerns about the couple's judgment. Lisa at the Waterford was brief and professional. Thank you for letting us know. We'll be in touch. Rhett at Riverside Gardens cut straight to it. Do you want us to cancel? No, I said. I want you to make whatever decision is right for your venue. That's not really an answer. It's the only one I have. By 2 p.m, I was exhausted, not from the calls themselves, but from the weight of what I'd set in motion. 7 venues, 7 conversations, each one a quiet nudge that might, or might not, end in cancellation. I drove home and tried to work on my review. The Thai place in Queens felt like it belonged to a different universe. I wrote 3 paragraphs about curry paste and deleted all of them. My phone sat on the desk, silent but somehow loud. At 6:30, it rang. Linda. We need to talk? All right. 3 venues called today asking very specific questions about your relationship with Nola, the Terrace, Willowbrook, and Chapel House, all within 2 hours of each other. I said nothing. Tainer, what did you do? I had some conversations with people I've worked with for years. About the wedding. About my daughter's wedding, yes. And now they're reconsidering. Her voice was tight, professional calm, barely containing frustration. Chapel House already sent a cancellation notice. They're citing concerns about event dynamics that don't align with our venue values. That's their right. This is sabotage. This is venue owners making business decisions based on complete information. You told them I was supportive but unable to attend due to size constraints. That was incomplete. I provided context. You're torpedoing your daughter's wedding out of spite. The accusation hit harder than I expected. Is it spite to let people know the truth? You built a narrative that didn't hold up to basic scrutiny. Vincent was already uncomfortable. Meredith was already asking questions. I didn't create the problem, Linda. Holden did when he decided respect was negotiable. So this is revenge. This is consequence. She was quiet for a long moment. I have to tell them what's happening. Tell them whatever you want. Tell them I made calls. Tell them I'm hurt and acting out. Tell them the truth. Doesn't change the fact that 7 venue owners now have information they didn't have before, and they're making choices based on that information. Tainer. Linda, let me ask you something. If you were booking a venue for an event, and you found out the family dynamics were this messy, would you proceed? Or would you advise your clients to address the underlying issues first? She didn't answer. That's what I thought. I ended the call before she could respond. My hands were shaking. Not from anger, from the realization that I'd just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The calls were made. The information was out there. Whatever happened next was beyond my control. At 8 o'clock, Nola called. Dad, what's going on? Hi, sweetheart. Don't hi, sweetheart me. Linda called Holden in a panic. Something about venues canceling and you making calls and everything falling apart. Chapel House canceled. The others are reconsidering. Why? Because I told them the truth about why I'm not attending. Silence. Then quietly, what truth? That Holden decided I wasn't important enough to invite. That he thinks I'm background. That my presence would complicate the image he's trying to project. That's not... She stopped. He didn't mean it like that. How did he mean it? He just wanted to keep things small, focused. He's under a lot of pressure at work, and the wedding was getting overwhelming, and he needed to simplify. Nola, I kept my voice gentle. Do you believe that? Another pause, longer this time. I don't know, she said finally. I don't know what I believe anymore. Then maybe that's the real problem, not the venues, not the calls I made, the fact that you're marrying someone who makes you doubt your own judgment. You don't understand what it's like. He's brilliant, he's successful, he knows what he wants, and he goes after it. That's attractive. That's exciting. And what do you want? I want... Her voice wavered. I want everything to stop being so complicated. Life's complicated. People who love you don't make it more complicated. They make it bearable. She started crying. Soft, contained sounds like she was trying to hide it. I don't know what to do. You don't have to know right now, but you do have to be honest about what's actually happening. With Holden, with the wedding, with yourself. The venues are really canceling? Some are, some might. I don't know yet. And you're okay with that? With ruining my wedding? The question hurt more than it should have. I'm okay with people making informed choices. I'm not okay with being erased from something that should matter. But Nola, this isn't about the wedding. It's about what the wedding represents. And if Holden's comfortable excluding me now, what else will he be comfortable with later? She didn't answer, just cried quietly on the other end of the line. I love you, I said. That doesn't change. Not because of Holden, not because of any of this. I know, she whispered. I have to go. Okay. The call ended, and I sat in my kitchen feeling like the worst father in the world, and also like maybe, for the first time in months, I'd told the complete truth about something that mattered. My phone buzzed. Marco. Heard about Chapel House. This is picking up momentum. You ready for what happens next? I typed back, no, but it's too late to stop it now. Good luck. I set the phone down and stared at the cartoon coffee cups hanging by the sink, wondering if doing the right thing was supposed to feel this terrible, or if I'd just convinced myself that destruction was righteousness. Either way, the calls were made, the dominoes were falling. And somewhere across the city, Holden was learning that treating people as background could make them disappear entirely, along with everything they'd quietly built over 26 years. Thursday morning arrived with rain that turned the city gray and soft-edged. I made coffee and checked my phone even though I knew I shouldn't. 7 missed calls, 12 text messages. All from the same 3 people, Linda, Holden, and Nola. I read Linda's first. 4 more venues requesting clarification on family attendance. This is out of control. Then Holden's. We need to talk. This is completely unacceptable behavior from someone your age. Then Nola's. Please call me. I didn't call anyone. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop, pretending to work on the Thai restaurant review while actually just staring at a blinking cursor. My phone rang at 9:15. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Mr. Jossman, this is Meredith from Willowbrook Estate. Hi, Meredith. I wanted to let you know we've made a decision regarding the Ravel wedding booking. She sounded formal, careful. We're going to cancel. I've already sent the notification to Linda with a full refund of the deposit. Can I ask why? Because after our conversation yesterday, I did some additional research, spoke with Linda, spoke with the couple directly, and what I found was a pattern of behavior that doesn't align with how we approach events here. She paused. Holden called me personally this morning, demanded to know why we were reconsidering. When I explained that we had concerns about excluding you from the ceremony, he told me, and I'm quoting here, that my job was to provide a venue, not to give relationship advice. I see. He then suggested that if we were going to be difficult about this, he'd make sure to leave negative reviews across every platform we're listed on. At which point I decided that no amount of money was worth dealing with someone who threatens venue staff. I closed my eyes. Meredith, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You didn't do anything wrong, Tainer. You gave me information. What Holden did with that information told me everything I needed to know about his character. Her tone softened slightly. I hope your daughter figures this out. But either way, Willowbrook isn't hosting this wedding. The call ended. I sat very still, processing what I'd just heard. Holden had threatened a venue owner, had confirmed every concern the industry had about his judgment and temperament. My phone rang again immediately. Linda. Willowbrook just canceled. I heard. The Foundry called 10 minutes ago. They're canceling too. Said they spoke with Holden yesterday and found him aggressive and entitled. Their words. She sounded exhausted. Tainer, this is a disaster. We're down to 9 venues. What did you tell them? The truth. That there's a family conflict we didn't anticipate and that the groom is making it worse by the hour. She sighed. I've been doing this for 11 years. I've never had a wedding implode like this. I'm sorry. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're systematically destroying your daughter's wedding to prove a point. I made 7 phone calls, that's all. 7 conversations with people I've known for years. What happened after that is on Holden. He's panicking. He called me at 6 this morning, demanding a complete list of every venue owner you've ever worked with so he could get ahead of the situation. I told him that would make things exponentially worse. He didn't listen. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. How many people did he call? I don't know. At least 6, maybe more. Linda's voice dropped. Tainer, he's burning bridges I need to maintain for other clients. He's threatening people, making accusations, acting like this is some kind of conspiracy. What does Nola say? She's trying to manage him, trying to calm him down, but he's not listening to her either. That's not how respect works. I know that. You know that. Apparently Holden doesn't. She paused. Is there any way to stop this? Any way to walk this back? I don't know. Maybe if Holden apologized, recognized what he did wrong. He's not going to do that. Then no, there's no way to stop it. The call ended. I sat with my phone in my hand, thinking about Holden making calls, threatening people, digging himself deeper. At noon, my phone buzzed with a group text. It took me a moment to realize I'd been added to the wedding planning group chat, the one I'd been excluded from for months. There were 16 people in the thread. Family members, friends, wedding party, and now me. Holden had sent a message to everyone. I want to address some rumors that have been circulating. There's been some confusion about guest lists and family dynamics. To be clear, Tainer was always going to be included in post-ceremony celebrations. The ceremony itself is limited capacity. Some people are choosing to take this personally and create unnecessary drama. We're handling it professionally and expect the same from everyone involved. I read it 3 times. The gaslighting was almost impressive. He'd rewritten the entire situation, made himself the reasonable one, made me the problem. Another message appeared. This one from Nola's mother. Holden, I think we should discuss this privately rather than in the group. Then one from someone I didn't recognize. Probably wedding party. Wait, Tainer wasn't invited to the actual ceremony. That seems weird? The thread exploded. 6 messages in 2 minutes. People asking questions, Holden deflecting, Nola trying to smooth things over, her mother attempting damage control. I watched it unfold like a car crash in slow motion. Then Marco sent a private text. Riverside Gardens just canceled. That's 5 down. I didn't respond. Just watched the group chat spiral while my phone rang repeatedly with calls I didn't answer. By evening, the count was 7. 7 venues had officially canceled. The remaining 6 were reviewing their policies according to Linda's increasingly frantic updates. Nola called at 8. Dad. Hi, sweetheart. Please make it stop. Her voice was raw. Please. I don't care about being right or wrong anymore. I just need this to stop. I can't make it stop. I just gave people information. What they do with it is their choice. You could call them back. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Holden meant exactly what he said. He's sorry. He told me he's sorry. He didn't realize how it would come across. Is he sorry he said it, or sorry it had consequences? She didn't answer. Nola, I love you, but I can't lie to venue owners to fix something Holden broke. That's not fair to them, and it's not fair to you. So what am I supposed to do? Cancel the wedding? Start over? I don't know. That's your decision. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in the dark, listening to rain against the window, wondering if there was any version of this where everyone came out okay. Probably not. But at least now people were seeing what I'd seen for months. That Holden's charm was surface level, and underneath was someone who valued image over substance. My phone buzzed one more time. Elias. You all right? Not really. Come by tomorrow. Breakfast. We'll talk. Okay. I went to bed that night knowing tomorrow would bring more cancellations, more angry calls, more evidence that I'd chosen truth over peace. The weight of that choice sat heavy on my chest, making sleep difficult. But somewhere underneath the guilt was something else, something that felt almost like relief. Friday morning I met Elias at 7. The bistro was empty except for us, morning light filtering through windows that needed cleaning. He put eggs and coffee in front of me without asking what I wanted. Eat. I ate. The eggs were good. Simple, perfectly seasoned. Elias didn't talk. Just let me work through breakfast while he read the paper and drank his own coffee. Finally, he looked up. How many venues now? 7 confirmed cancellations, 6 more reconsidering. And how do you feel about that? Terrible, relieved, guilty, vindicated, all of it at once. He nodded like that made perfect sense. You know what's interesting? Vincent called me yesterday. Said Holden threatened him too. Said he'd make sure the terrace lost business if they canceled. Jesus. Vincent laughed. Told Holden that threats from someone with no actual industry relationships were meaningless. Then he canceled the booking. Elias folded his paper. That's 8. Nola called last night. Asked me to make it stop. What did you tell her? That I couldn't. That this is consequence, not conspiracy. And what did she say? Nothing. Just hung up. Elias refilled my coffee. You're doing the right thing. Feels awful, but it's right. Holden needed to learn that respect isn't optional, that treating people poorly has costs. Even if it costs Nola her wedding? Especially then. Because if she marries him without understanding who he really is, that costs her a lot more in the long run. We sat in silence for a while. The bistro felt safe, insulated from everything happening outside, but I couldn't hide here forever. My phone rang. Linda. Meridian Hall just canceled. That's 9. Riverside confirmed their cancellation this morning. 10 total. The Waterford is strongly leaning toward canceling. We're down to 3 viable venues, and 2 of those are asking questions I can't answer without making things worse. What about the 3rd? Harborview. Small place, newer, doesn't know you personally. They're willing to proceed, but their capacity is only 80 people, and Holden wanted 200. So even if they keep it, it's not the wedding he planned. Not even close. She paused. Tainer, he's talking about suing you for interference, for sabotage. His lawyer apparently thinks there's a case. Let him try. I didn't break any contracts. Didn't threaten anyone. Just had conversations. That's what I told him? He's not listening. Linda sounded exhausted. This is going to end with a city hall ceremony and a lot of bitter feelings. Probably. She hung up. I looked at Elias. 10 down, I said. How many were on the original list? 13. He smiled slightly. So 3 left, and one of those is too small, which means effectively 2. Yeah. And Holden's panicking. Apparently threatening legal action. Elias laughed, a short bark of genuine amusement. Of course he is. Because that's what people do when they realize they don't actually have power. They threaten lawyers, threaten lawsuits, threaten anything that sounds official and scary. It doesn't scare you? Should it? What's he going to sue for? You talk to people you've known for years. That's not illegal. That's not even unethical. You gave them information they deserved to have. He leaned back. The only question now is whether the last 2 venues fold, or if Holden manages to salvage something small and humiliating. My phone buzzed. Text from Marco. Chapel House posted something on their Instagram. Might want to look. I opened Instagram, found Chapel House's account. Their latest post was a photo of their venue at sunset with a long caption. We've recently made the difficult decision to cancel a March booking due to concerns about family dynamics and client behavior. At Chapel House, we believe celebrations should bring people together, not exclude those who matter most. We stand by our decision and our values. The comments were already filling up. People asking questions, other venue accounts chiming in with support. Someone had tagged Holden. They went public, I said. Elias looked at the post. Good for them. That takes guts. Within an hour, 2 more venues had posted similar statements, not naming Holden directly, but making it clear they'd canceled bookings over family exclusion concerns and client behavior issues. The wedding industry was small enough that anyone paying attention would connect the dots. Linda called again at noon. It's over. The Waterford just canceled. Harborview is reconsidering after seeing the Instagram posts. We're down to 1 venue, Parkside Manor, and they're asking for a meeting with Holden before confirming. What kind of meeting? The kind where they assess whether he's someone they want to work with, which, given everything, he's probably going to fail. So no venue. No venue. I'm advising them to postpone. Maybe elope. Maybe rethink the whole thing. She sighed. I've never seen anything like this, Tainer. Complete collapse in less than a week. I'm sorry it affected your business. Don't be. This needed to happen. Holden's behavior over the past 3 days has been appalling. Threatening my vendors, demanding things he has no right to demand, acting like everyone's conspiring against him instead of recognizing he created this mess. She paused. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. It's harsh, but sometimes harsh is necessary. The call ended. I sat in Elias's bistro watching the lunch crowd trickle in, feeling something shift inside me. The guilt was still there, but underneath it was a strange kind of peace. Nola texted at 2. We're postponing. Maybe indefinitely. Holden's furious. Blames you for everything. I don't know what to think anymore. I typed back, I love you. Whatever you decide, I'm here. She didn't respond. Elias brought me lunch. Soup I didn't order, but ate anyway. You going to be okay? Eventually. Good. He sat down across from me. You know what Holden's biggest mistake was? Thinking your silence meant you didn't matter. Thinking invisibility meant powerlessness. He confused quiet with weak, and now he's learning the difference. I just wanted him to respect me. And now everyone knows what happens when he doesn't. That's the lesson, not just for him, for everyone watching. Elias stood up. You did good, Tainer. Doesn't feel like it yet, but you did. I finished my soup and walked home through afternoon light that felt cleaner somehow. My phone stayed quiet for the first time in days. The storm had passed, leaving wreckage behind, but at least the worst was over. Or so I thought. Saturday morning brought the final collapse. I woke to 17 missed calls and a voicemail from Linda marked urgent. Tainer, call me immediately. Everything's falling apart. I called back. She answered on the first ring. Parkside Manor canceled late last night. That's all 13 venues, every single one. She sounded almost impressed. Holden had his meeting with them yesterday afternoon. Apparently he spent 40 minutes explaining how everyone else was wrong and he was the victim of a conspiracy. They canceled the booking before he left the building. Jesus. It gets worse. Or better, depending on your perspective. Someone leaked the story to a wedding planning forum. It's gone viral. Groom excludes bride's father, loses every venue, is trending on 3 different platforms. People are sharing the Instagram posts. Holden's LinkedIn is getting flooded with comments. I felt my stomach drop. That's not what I wanted. Maybe not, but it's what happened. And honestly, the industry needed this. Too many couples treat vendors like servants instead of professionals. This is a very public reminder that behavior has consequences. What about Nola? She's devastated, embarrassed, angry at Holden, angry at you, angry at the situation. Linda paused. But she's also asking questions she should have asked months ago. About who Holden really is, about whether someone who handles conflict this poorly is someone she wants to marry. Is she calling off the engagement? I don't know, but the wedding's definitely off. Can't have a wedding without a venue, and no one's touching this booking now. We hung up. I sat on my couch staring at nothing, processing the magnitude of what I'd set in motion. 13 venues. Complete collapse, public humiliation, and Nola caught in the middle, her wedding destroyed, her relationship in question. My phone buzzed. Text from Holden. You've destroyed everything. I hope you're proud of yourself. I'm consulting with lawyers about harassment and business interference. This isn't over. I didn't respond. What was there to say? He'd learned nothing, still saw himself as the victim, still couldn't grasp that his own actions had created this disaster. Another text, this one from Nola. I need space, from everyone. Please don't contact me for a while. That one hurt worse than anything Holden could say. I spent the weekend alone, avoiding calls, avoiding social media, avoiding everything except the basic functions of existing. Made coffee, ate food that tasted like nothing, stared at my laptop without writing a single word. Sunday evening, Marco called. You should know. The story's bigger than the wedding forums now. Local news picked it up. Restaurant critics' quiet revenge is how they're framing it. They're calling you the most dangerous father-in-law in the industry. That's ridiculous. Maybe, but it's also accurate. You took down 13 venues in 4 days without raising your voice once. That's impressive and terrifying in equal measure. I just wanted respect. And you got it. Everyone in this industry now knows exactly what happens when someone disrespects Tainer Josman. That's going to follow you, might help your reputation, might complicate it, but everyone knows. Monday morning brought an unexpected call. Nola's mother. We need to talk. We met at a coffee shop near her place in Brooklyn. She looked tired, older than I remembered. We sat with our drinks untouched between us. Nola's a mess, she said without preamble. She's questioning everything, the engagement, her judgment, whether she can trust herself to make good decisions. I'm sorry. Are you? Because you just blew up her entire wedding to prove a point. I gave people information. They made their own choices. Don't give me that. You knew exactly what would happen. She leaned forward. But here's the thing. You were right. Holden is exactly what you thought he was. Arrogant, controlling. more interested in image than substance, and Nola was so caught up in the excitement of being with someone successful that she couldn't see it. I waited. She's staying with me for now, taking time to think. Holden's been calling constantly, trying to fix things, but his version of fixing is blaming everyone else and demanding she stand by him against the conspiracy. She smiled without humor. He still doesn't get it. What does Nola say? Not much, she's processing. But I think she's starting to understand that someone who treats you well in public but excludes your father from your wedding isn't actually treating you well. It's performance. We sat in silence for a moment. I owe you an apology, she said finally. When this started, I thought you were being petty, vengeful. I told Nola to ignore it, that you'd get over it. I was wrong. You were trying to protect her. From the wrong thing. I should have been protecting her from Holden, not from you. She picked up her coffee, finally took a sip. For what it's worth, I think you did what you had to do. It was harsh, but sometimes love is harsh. The conversation ended with a fragile understanding. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. She left first, and I sat alone with cold coffee, thinking about the cost of being right. Tuesday brought another call from Linda. Holden hired a lawyer, sent cease and desist letters to 6 venue owners claiming defamation and tortious interference. Will it work? No. The venues documented everything. They have records of his threats, his behavior, his own words condemning him. Any lawyer worth their retainer will tell him to drop it. She laughed. But it means he's still fighting, still convinced this is everyone else's fault. What about Nola? Haven't heard from her in 3 days. I think she's done with all of us. That evening, I got an email. No subject line, just Nola's address at the top. Dad, I don't know how to feel about what happened. Part of me is angry. Part of me understands. Part of me wishes you'd handled it differently. But the biggest part of me is realizing you were right about Holden, about how he treats people, about what matters to him. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I wanted you to know I'm thinking. Love, Nola. I read it 5 times, then closed my laptop and allowed myself to feel something like hope. Wednesday morning, 2 weeks after the first phone call, I met Elias at the bistro again. He had the newspaper spread out, shaking his head. You made the Times, small piece, but still. The power of quiet influence in the wedding industry. He slid the paper across. They interview 3 venue owners. All of them say basically the same thing, that excluding family members from weddings is a red flag, and they wish they'd asked harder questions earlier. I scanned the article. My name appeared twice. Holden's appeared once, redacted to a local finance professional. The piece was surprisingly balanced, acknowledging both the unusual nature of my response and the validity of the underlying concerns. How does it feel being famous? Elias asked. Weird, uncomfortable. I just wanted him to respect me. And now the entire industry respects you. Careful what you wish for. He poured more coffee. Heard from Nola? 1 email. She's processing. And Holden? Threatening lawsuits that won't go anywhere. Elias nodded. He'll keep fighting for a while. Men like that don't accept responsibility easily, but eventually he'll move on, find someone else to blame, convince himself he was the victim of circumstances beyond his control. You think Nola will stay with him? No, I think she's smarter than that. Might take her a minute, but she'll figure it out. I wanted to believe him. Over the next week, things started settling. The calls stopped. The social media attention faded. Holden's lawyer apparently advised him to drop the defamation threats. Life returned to something approaching normal, except nothing felt normal anymore. I wrote my reviews, met with restaurant owners, maintained the quiet routines that had defined my professional life for 26 years. But something had shifted. People treated me differently now, more carefully, with a kind of wary respect that acknowledged I was capable of things they hadn't previously imagined. I wasn't sure I liked it. 2 weeks after the article, Nola called. Can we talk? In person? We met at a park halfway between our apartments. She looked tired but clearer somehow, like she'd been through something difficult and come out the other side. I ended it, she said without preamble, with Holden, 3 days ago. How do you feel? Relieved, sad, angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. She sat on a bench, and I sat next to her. He didn't take it well, tried to convince me you'd manipulated me, that I was making a huge mistake, that I'd regret giving up someone so successful. What did you say? That success without decency is just ambition, and I didn't want to spend my life with someone who measures people's worth by whether they're useful to him. I felt something loosen in my chest. I'm still mad at you, she continued, for how you did it, for not talking to me first, for making choices that affected my life without including me. I know. But I understand why, and I'm grateful you cared enough to show me who he really was, even if it meant destroying the wedding. She looked at me directly. You were right, about everything, and that makes me feel stupid and naive and like I should have known better. You're not stupid. You're 24 and you fell for someone who's very good at performing certainty. That's not a character flaw. It feels like one. We sat watching joggers and dog walkers pass, the city moving around us in its endless rhythm. What now? I asked. I don't know. Figure out who I am without Holden, without the wedding, without the whole image I'd constructed. She smiled slightly. Maybe get to know my dad better. Turns out he's more interesting than I thought. I'm really not. You collapsed 13 venues in 4 days without raising your voice. That's objectively interesting. I laughed despite everything. That's not how I wanted you to find out I'm interesting. Probably not, but it's what happened. She leaned against me, the way she used to when she was small. I'm sorry he treated you that way. You deserved better. So did you. We stayed there for an hour, not talking much, just existing in the same space. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, wasn't resolution, but it was a start. When we finally stood to leave, she hugged me tight. Thank you for caring enough to fight back, even if your method was terrifying. Any time. She left first, and I watched her walk away, thinking about how sometimes love means watching things burn so something better can grow. My phone buzzed. Marco. Holden's been telling people you're blacklisted in the industry, that no one should work with you because you're unstable and vindictive. Thought you should know. Is it working? Not even a little. If anything, it's making him look worse. Everyone knows what actually happened. I put the phone away and walked home feeling lighter than I had in months. The wedding was gone. The relationship was over. Holden was still fighting battles he'd already lost, and Nola was free. The first week of March arrived cold and clear. The date Nola and Holden were supposed to get married came and went without ceremony, without celebration. Just another Saturday. I spent it at Elias's bistro, helping him test a new menu item, duck confit with an orange reduction. We worked in comfortable silence, tasting, adjusting, making notes. This was the life I understood. Attention to detail. Honest assessment. Building something good through patient effort. Around 2, Marco stopped by. Heard something interesting? Thought you'd want to know? What's that? Holden's engaged again. Different woman. Works in his office. Apparently he's been seeing her since January. I processed that. While he was still with Nola. Timeline's unclear, but probably. Marco shrugged. Anyway, they're planning a wedding. Small thing, city hall, nothing fancy. Word is he learned his lesson about big venue weddings. Elias laughed. He learned the wrong lesson. Thinks the problem was the venues, not his behavior. People like that always do, Marco said. Anyway, thought you'd find it interesting. The great romance that couldn't survive venue cancellations lasted about 3 weeks after the breakup. After Marco left, Elias looked at me. How does that make you feel? Vindicated. Sad for Nola that she wasted time on someone so shallow. Relieved she found out before actually marrying him. Good answers. That evening, Nola called. Did you hear? About Holden? Yeah. He called me yesterday. Wanted me to know he'd moved on and was really happy now, like I'd be jealous or something. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. I told him congratulations and hung up. You okay? I'm fine. Genuinely fine. It's just weird how quickly he replaced me, like I was interchangeable. You weren't interchangeable. You were inconvenient. You had a father who noticed how he treated people. The new woman probably doesn't have that complication. God, that's depressing. It's honest. We talked for another hour about nothing important. Her job, my latest review, the weather, normal conversation between father and daughter, the kind we hadn't had in months. Before hanging up, she said, I'm glad you made those calls. I know it was complicated and messy and probably hurt me in the short term, but long term, you saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. I'm glad you see it that way. I do now. Took me a while, but I do. The following week, I got a call from a reporter at Food and Wine magazine. They wanted to do a profile piece about restaurant critics and industry influence. Apparently, my situation had sparked conversations about the power dynamics in food journalism. I declined politely. The story was over. Nola was safe. Holden had moved on. There was nothing left to discuss publicly. Vincent called a few days later. Just wanted to let you know, Holden tried to book the terrace again, for his new wedding. What did you tell him? I told him we were fully booked for the next 18 months, which isn't true, but I'm not hosting anything for someone who threatened me. He paused. You did a good thing, Tainer. Feels weird to say, but you did. Thanks, Vincent. Anytime, and listen, if you ever need anything, you call me. I mean that. The calls of support kept coming. Venue owners, restaurant managers, people I'd worked with for years telling me they understood, they approved, they had my back. The network I'd built over 26 years hadn't just held, it had strengthened. By mid-March, life had settled into a new rhythm. I wrote my reviews, had dinner with Nola every Tuesday, maintained my quiet routines. The industry still talked about what happened, but the conversation had shifted from scandal to case study. What I'd done was now used as an example of how reputational capital worked, how relationships mattered more than money. I wasn't sure how I felt about being an example, but I was sure about one thing. Holden had learned that treating people as background could make them disappear entirely, along with everything those people had quietly built. And that lesson, however harsh, was one he desperately needed. The wedding was supposed to be today. Saturday, March 15th. I woke early, made coffee, and stood at my kitchen window watching the city wake up. Same routine, same view, but everything different. My phone rang at 8. Nola. Hey, Dad, you okay? I'm fine. You? Yeah, just wanted to check in. Felt weird waking up on what should have been my wedding day. I can imagine. Actually, I'm kind of relieved. Is that terrible? Not even a little. We talked for a few minutes before she had to go. After hanging up, I sat with my coffee thinking about alternate timelines, the version where I'd stayed quiet, where I'd accepted exclusion with grace, where Nola married Holden and spent years discovering who he really was. That version felt worse than this one. At noon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Tainer Jossman? Yes. This is Amanda Riley, wedding coordinator at Parkside Manor. We were the last venue on Linda's list before everything... Well, before. I waited. I'm calling because we received a booking request this morning, from Holden Ravel, for a small ceremony next month with his new fiancé. She paused. I wanted to ask if you had any insight before we proceed. I almost laughed. Holden was still trying, still convinced he could operate in the same industry that had rejected him, still didn't understand the permanence of reputation damage. What do you want to know? I asked. Whether the concerns that led to the previous cancellations are still relevant, whether we'd be making a mistake taking this booking. I thought about it. Could have told her everything. Could have detailed Holden's threats, his arrogance, his complete failure to accept responsibility. Could have ensured this venue canceled too. Instead, I said, I think you should trust your own judgment. Look at how he handles the conversation, how he treats your staff, whether he takes responsibility for what happened or blames others. You'll know pretty quickly what kind of person he is. That's fair, thank you. Amanda? Yes? If you do take the booking, make sure everything's in writing. Holden has a tendency to rewrite history when things don't go his way. Noted. Thank you, Tainer. She hung up. I sat holding my phone, feeling something settle. I could have destroyed Holden's second attempt, could have extended the revenge indefinitely, but that wasn't the point anymore. The point was showing Nola the truth, protecting her from a terrible mistake. That goal was accomplished. At 6 that evening, Linda called. You're not going to believe this. Try me. Parkside Manor called Holden this afternoon to discuss his booking, asked him to explain what happened with the previous wedding. He went on a 20-minute rant about conspiracy and vindictive former in-laws and industry collusion. She laughed. They canceled on him mid-conversation. All 13 venues plus one. 14 total, a perfect record. Linda paused. I heard Amanda called you first. She wanted perspective. And you told her to make her own decision. I did. That was generous. More generous than he deserves. Maybe. But this was never about punishing him forever. It was about protecting Nola. Well, mission accomplished. She's free, he's alone, and every venue in the city knows exactly who Holden Ravel is. Linda sighed. I'm out of the wedding planning business, by the way. Moving into corporate events. Turns out I prefer working with professionals. We said goodbye. I made dinner, pasta with vegetables, nothing fancy, and ate while reading a book I'd been meaning to finish for months. At 9, Elias texted, Heard about Venue 14. Well done. I texted back, Didn't do anything. He destroyed himself. Same result either way. Around 11, as I was getting ready for bed, my phone buzzed again. Nola. Just heard Holden got rejected again? You had something to do with that? Not really. I just gave honest advice when asked. Right. I could almost hear her smile. Dad? Yeah? Thank you for everything, for caring enough to fight, for showing me the truth, even when it was hard, for being the kind of father who protects his daughter even when she doesn't know she needs it. I stared at the screen before replying. Always. Love you. Love you too. I set the phone down and looked around my quiet apartment. The faded cartoon coffee cup still hung by the sink. The city hummed outside the window. Everything looked the same, and yet it wasn't. 13 venues? No, 14. All gone in less than a month. Not through sabotage or revenge, but through truth. Through people making informed decisions about who they wanted to work with. Through the natural consequences of treating others as disposable. Holden had decided I wasn't important enough to include. He'd calculated wrong. He'd mistaken silence for weakness, distance for irrelevance. Now everyone understood the cost of that mistake. I stood at the kitchen window, looking out at the city that had witnessed it all. Somewhere out there, Holden was learning that image collapses faster than reputation. That respect built over decades can't be rushed, faked, or forced back into existence. That quiet calls, made carefully to people who trust you, can unravel an entire wedding in under 48 hours. I smiled at my reflection in the dark glass. Mission accomplished.